Hello, it's Dr. Patrick Price, and this is the Body Detector Show. Today we have Chris Burres. Am I saying this right, Chris?
You
Burres?
are, yes.
And he is a scientist working on the product called C60, carbon nanotechnology. A lot of fancy stuff they're doing over there. And this is right here in Houston, Texas, guy, right in my backyard. So today
Yes.
he's agreed to be on the show, and we're going to talk about some interesting things. But what I want to do with Chris today for the show is have him talk since many of you out there have no idea what C60 is. We're going to take the baby basics, hopefully, with you guys and introduce to you guys, and of course, educate me more as well, what really this product is and how this story began. So we're going to start today with Chris. Chris, you got the floor.
All right. Thank you so much,
So
Dr. Price, for having me. I'm excited. Yeah.
Tell me, who are you first? Let's hear that.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. Where I don't often talk about myself. Just so kind of long and short. My name's Chris Burres. I'm the owner, a co-owner and co-founder of a company that's been manufacturing carbon nanomaterials since 1991. I grew up, I'm actually a military brat, so I moved every 2 years until I moved to Houston. My dad, right at the time I was starting college, got a job in Houston. So I moved to Houston, went to the University of Houston. That's actually where I met my now business partner. He and I built the equipment to manufacture the molecule that we're going to be talking about today. And yeah, Houston is home. I love Houston. It's a great, I was just talking on a call earlier about what a great place it is. I did share with him because I grew up moving every 2 years, I feel like I could leave tomorrow. Like it would just be easy to pick up and go tomorrow. And then he goes like, where would you go? And then I was like, well, I wouldn't go anywhere, like, but I could.
Well, if you did, you have to go a long way. So Texas is a big place, you'd have to travel far away.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize how big Texas is, and that you can drive. Well, even in Houston, you can drive for an hour plus, and not necessarily you don't have to have traffic. There are areas where you can drive an hour without traffic and still be in Houston. That's a pretty big city, but yeah, that's kind of the long and short of me. Again, I'm excited to be here, and I think we can just jump right in. I
got one more question about you now.
Okay.
Looking at your background, you actually blow things up. So that's a question I have. 4th of July, you're like a fun guy to have around, obviously, right? So tell me about how you got into exploding things.
Yeah, that is an interesting piece of my career. We're in Houston, and my undergraduate degree is in mechanical engineering. And so I ended up working in the oil and gas industry at some point. And I actually have patents related. I'm on patents as an inventor related to explosives and downhole oil tools. And I've gotten to do some pretty amazing things in that regard. For instance, they use charges in this explosive process, and I was actually able to physically press charges. I was working at the time with a guy who'd been in the industry for 25 years and had not ever met anyone who had actually pressed a charge. And so he and I got to work on that, and it was a pretty cutting edge project. And pretty lucky to be involved in it and actually on a patent related to explosives on downhole oil tools.
Now, pretty much when you get in the field of blowing things up, so I'm just going to say, from what my understanding is, the federal agencies have to know who you are before you do this kind of work. Is that correct?
Well, we actually ended up working with a scientist, an explosives expert out of the Naval Aeronautical Weapons Station, which is in Inyokern, California. So regularly I was flying out to LA and then a little puddle jumper over into Inyokern, which is I think it's the sunniest place on Earth, potentially, certainly within the United States, more sun than any other location. And there's again, the Naval Aeronautical Weapons Station, where they do a lot of explosive research is there. And we were working at a small facility just off of the base with this explosives expert. I'm not sure anybody knew who I was. I do remember one time, and this was really close to after 9/11, I had some mock charges, and I forgot that they were in my suitcase. And I got to the other side and pulled them out of my suitcase It was actually my carry-on, and I was like, I mean, and there was no, like, it had never been exposed to explosives. It was, you know, it wouldn't have, you know, when they wipe that explosive detector pad on it, it wouldn't have tested positive. But I do feel like they should have asked me what it was.
That might have been
And I'm
a
also
very
kind of
good
glad,
question for people to have, right?
right. I'm kind of glad they didn't. But yeah, it was an exciting time working with some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. Sounds like there's not many people who get to like blow things up,
And it
you know. So
turns
it's
out
always interesting.
it is really cool. And it turns out that carbon nanomaterials have a role in explosives. And so we've worked and done some proposals on projects that incorporate, in this case, carbon nanotubes into explosives, because they can help even what you don't want to happen in any sort of explosive that you're trying to control and do, you know, a particular accomplish a particular task, is you want it to actually go evenly, right? So when you spark the explosive, when you actually ignite the explosion, the explosive, you actually want it to go very evenly. It goes obviously very quickly, but you also want it to go evenly, and the nanotube can play an important role in that process.
So question is, would I be pulling the cart ahead of the horse here if I explain about, say, carbon nanotubes versus the fullerenes, or so we should go in the C60 what that is first?
Well, yeah, let's get to that, and we'll get to it by starting really at the very beginning. And it's kind of cool. You're in Houston, I'm in Houston. This molecule was discovered in Houston at Rice University in Houston. Like, this is pretty cool. So let's jump right in. So for anybody who's watching, I'm holding up a molecule. If you just happen to be listening, imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So we have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms, and that's the carbon 60 that Dr. Price mentioned that we're talking about it. It was discovered in 1985 at Rice University, and the three scientists who discovered it actually won the Nobel Prize for the discovery of this molecule. So it's Nobel Prize winning chemistry. What's amazing, this molecule is absolutely amazing, and the reason they won the Nobel Prize is because how important this material actually is. The way I describe it is it performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So better ink, better tires, better batteries, better photocells, all of these things. And by the way, we are talking about a supplement, so you might be getting nervous because I just said ink, batteries, tires, and photocells.
Right.
Don't worry, it's going to get worse because that's just how the story goes.
Yeah.
So that's why they won the Nobel Prize. It's amazing. There's actually a new symbol in chemistry. That's kind of the way you might know you're going to get a Nobel Prize, is when you add a symbol to chemistry that didn't exist before the discovery of this, soccer ball shaped molecule. The @ symbol, which we're all familiar with our email addresses, now is a new symbol in chemistry. And so lanthanum at C60, it turns out the void in the middle of the soccer ball molecule is big enough for any atom on the periodic chart to fit inside of. So that's physically trapped, not covalently or ionically bonded to the exterior. So lanthanum at C60 means lanthanum physically trapped inside of that soccer ball molecule. So it's amazing. They won the Nobel Prize, and for various reasons, here's where it gets worse. For various reasons, they thought it would be toxic, right? It's got some semblance to benzene. Benzene is a known carcinogen and known to be acutely toxic. And so they thought this molecule might be toxic. So whenever you have something that is such a high performing material and also potentially toxic, you want to do a toxicity study so that if man is working with it, you can figure out how to have man work with it safely, right? So they did this toxicity study. It was out of the University of Paris. And in that study, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil. And here's where I'm going to make a distinction. So you've got carbon 60, and carbon 60 is for those industrial applications. That's, inks, batteries, tires, photocells. There's peer-reviewed published research that shows when you improperly process carbon 60, it's actually harmful, right? So that's something that you want to be mindful of. When you process it properly, we call that ESS60, right? So again, in that study, they gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with ESS60 dissolved in it. again, it was a toxicity study, but instead of being toxic, the rats they gave that ESS60 and olive oil to lived 90% longer than the control group. So
yeah, that's the part that got my attention when you said extending life.
yeah,
right?
and it's not just extending life. It was a 90% extension life. It's the single longest longevity experimental results on mammals. There's some results on, some worms and some, fruit flies. They're always doing tests on fruit flies because they live so short. But it's the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals. The next best way, and you're probably familiar with this, the next best way to live longer is calorie restriction. I call it the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet.
By fasting, right?
Right. It's well known that if you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. This is proven in multiple animal models. It's proven nobody's done
thousands of years by Hindu and Chinese as well,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I call it the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. Nobody seems to sign up for that. I don't know if that's an offering at your clinic.
Well, there are people, and I know one patient who's a breatharian. If you've seen those people, where they eat no more food and they drink no more water. And this one lady, she's a doctor friend of mine. It's his patient, and it took her about 5 years to get to that point. And she got to the point where she only slept at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. 1 hour. Other than that, she was up doing activities all the time. No food or water. She drank a tea now and then to move her bowels. That was it. And he monitored, he says, because he watched her for 5 years get to the point of doing this, and said the lady was just a ball of energy. So all she did was just do activities all the time. But she really had no food or water.
Wow.
I don't know her. We don't know where she is now, but she was living quite healthy doing just that.
Wow. That's I haven't even heard of that breatharian. I haven't even heard of that.
Yeah, well, it's more of the Hindus started it, I believe, from their practices of going no food and water for a long time, until they figure out they could, like, in a way, manifest the energy in their body through light. They said through sunlight they could manifest what they needed.
Wow. And again, with this calorie restriction, it is well known, reduce your consumption by 30%, extend your life by 30%. But that's a pretty aggressive, not as aggressive as breatharian, but it's a pretty aggressive dietary, restriction.
Yeah. Have they started any human studies on this to see about extending life yet?
Well, the answer is no. And in fact, the next step is to recreate that original study. And we're actually doing that. And I'll talk a little bit about the journey, what kind of separates us, I think, from supplement companies in general. I think the first thing that separates us from most supplement companies is we never wanted to be a supplement company. Like, we tried very hard not to be a supplement company. Let me give you an example. That study was published in 2012. We actually provided the material. Our company is mentioned in the actual publication. It's peer-reviewed, published. So it's the kind of thing that you would hang your hat on, or if you're looking for things that are cutting edge, it's the kind of research that you would look for. That was a kind of 2012. In 2013, we started getting phone calls of people going, "Hey, how much in a dose?" And I want you to think for a second about us as carbon nanomaterial scientists. We've got our, carbon nanomaterial scientist hat on, and somebody's calling us. They're biohackers. They're kind of wacky people, and I say that affectionately because I am now one. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're asking me how much of this material that we sell to research institutions around the world to put in ink, tires, batteries, and photocells. You're asking me how much should you put in your body? And I'm going to go with approximately 0, right? We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling mid 2013. So as a company progression, in 1991, we started the company all the way until mid 2013. We don't have to add not for human consumption to our labeling because nobody's crazy enough to consume it, right? They actually kind of thought it might be toxic. In 2013, people are asking how much in a dose, and we added not for human consumption. And my business partner, Robert, and I, we're probably meeting quarterly to, like, okay, this is, people are giving us great testimonials. It was funny because people would call us and like, hey, my hair is growing back. My knee pain is gone. And we'd be like, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption.
Only for dogs. This is only for dogs.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you could do that. That's one way to get away with it, Chris. You could say veterinarian use only dogs and cats and horses. But the, you know, the DMSO.
Yeah, and we actually do.
You know, DMSO,
Yeah, we actually do have a dog. And
yeah.
say that again.
That's the story of DMSO. You know, they were drinking it in the 60s, and then they had to put on there eventually, not for human consumption. Even though people don't know,
Oh wow.
that sulfur you can drink very much to avoid strokes and heart attacks.
Oh wow.
There's plenty of books and journals about it for years, but they banned drinking it supposedly, and it's only for external use only. So I'm very familiar with how that happens.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
And in reference to kind of pets, we actually do have a dog and cat product because, you know, in reality, the first study that starts this off is in a Wistar rat. So we're getting these phone calls, these amazing testimonials are coming in, and in reality, it was the opposite of the placebo effect, right? Because it did say not for human consumption on it, right? So nobody went into this, trying to consume this product thinking that their knee pain was going to go away. Nobody went in thinking that their hair was going to grow faster. Nobody went into this thinking that, you know, their grandfather who hasn't gone out and mowed the lawn was going to start doing that. And those are the kind of testimonials that we were getting. And by the way, I'm going to interject right now that the FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. And any testimonial that I share will be personal, meaning me or my wife, or people that I'm in direct contact. So like I've had conversations with them, not something that my business partner has had a conversation. I'm sharing it. Like I like that one-to-one kind of belly-to-belly communication, or we've got an email thread, so we can actually track back to these people.
Mm-hmm. It does change the category of everything, Chris. It does, once you say human consumption, then obviously all the rules change, right? So you know, any company, when they have products like this, there's others who have, they say only for external use, which, you just, offhand, you know what to do with it. So that way you avoid those kind of issues, you know.
Yeah, and in reality, if you think about we're getting calls like twice a week and great testimonials. When we landed about the latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following is actually in the Bitcoin space. Started talking about all the benefits he was getting from taking the formulation on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing 2 times a week to 10 times a day. And that's when my business partner and I sat down and we said, oh, and by the way, between 2013 and 2017, as we're considering getting into the supplement industry, I actually found a peer-reviewed published paper that said 50% of the products that are on the supplements that they tested that are on the market do not have in them what they say they have in them. And that's the antithesis. You know, we're delivering a high quality product to research institutions around the world. The first thing they do is if they get our black powder, that's the color of the ESS60 powder. If they get it, they're going to give it to a grad student or a research associate who's going to go throw it in their HPLC and confirm that we sold them, we delivered to them what we sold them, right? And that's not what's in the supplement market. And that was one of the reasons.
Chris, are they mainly getting from you when you see other companies making the C60 now? They mainly get in the raw materials from you guys. Is there other locations that get this kind of product? Raw material.
I would say that the most reputable ones are getting it from us. Yes, and I would say that the others don't seem to care as much. I can tell you a story. I was on. Through an email thread, I got an email, and this is just kind of almost humorous, but this gentleman asked me the question. He says, hey, I'm taking brand A, which was not ours, and I'm thinking of switching to brand B, which was also not ours. What do you think? And I was like, okay, well, first off, let me tell you a story about brand A. We used to sell carbon 60, actual carbon 60, not ESS60 to them. So it wasn't processed for human consumption. It was in the very early days. So we didn't actually know what they were doing with it. As soon as we figured out that they were putting it in oil to give it to their customers, we told them, we will not sell you that C60 anymore. And they are still in business. So the integrity behind that is not good. So that's what I shared with the guy. And then I said, and with respect to brand B, if you trust me to recommend which brand, and you're actually going to consume this, you probably should just take my brand. Like that's probably what should happen. That's the thing.
Like I tell people, you guys are the originators. If you're going to get a product and something unique as this is, go to the original source, because all the knockoffs immediately show up. And then, like I was telling Priscilla the other day, is people are showing up saying ours is 10 times stronger than this one. Well, how do you answer that when someone's saying theirs is so much stronger now, even, and you're the originator making the product? How did they make those type of claims?
Falsely is
false
the reality. There's a couple. So in general, I don't do bad. I think bad marketing, like negative marketing, is bad for the industry as a whole. Right. So I've done very little. I don't call people out. We have actually purchased 22 of the brands that are on the market in the C60 space, not the ESS60 space. That's how you can make sure you're safe. But we purchased 22 of the brands, and the way I describe it is their concentrations were woefully low. It was only one other brand other than ours that actually had the concentration that they claimed. And this just goes to scientific expertise. We actually have a lab here. We've actually been doing this since 1991, 31 plus years. Right. We know how to work with the material. We know how to test the material. And one of the things that we found is in the original paper, that University of Paris paper that proved our material, because it was our material used in it, extended the life of these Wistar rats by 90%. In that original paper, they just mixed, again, at that time it was carbon 60. They processed it properly. So that's ESS60. They mixed the ESS60 for 2 weeks. It actually takes a very long time for this ESS60 to dissolve in these oils, whether it's olive oil, MCT oil, or avocado oil. And so I think a lot of the manufacturers out there are just mixing it 2 weeks, and they're saying, oh, we got the same concentration without doing any testing. And actually, I know that's going on. What we found,
guys, so Chris and Scott, so those of you watching this video, listen to what the scientist, the specialist, the person who knows what's saying right now is when you go to buy a product, like I've always learned myself, go to the original source, talk to the people who process it, who make it, and get the real information. Because as soon as a name gets out there and gets popular, it's like kava. When kava came out, the reason people got ill from it is because they're supposed to be using the root. Well, people began using the leaves, the stems, and saying we have kava. And of course, that's where the liver problems came. So people don't understand what type of product, how it's being mixed. Of course, with the olive oil, like one of the best I hear. And I'll make a statement about that. The olive oil, because I wrote a book about this a while back. They got a leptochart, organoleptic chart. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And that's how they gauge olive oil. There is actually a gauge in Europe for their organoleptic chart, and they look at 6.5 to 7 to make sure the pH is right, so it's not too acidic, right? And so with olive oil, you creates oxygen in the body. People don't know this. It's one of the few oils that actually will create oxygen as it cleans debris out of the body. And so you guys are using a Greek oil, which y'all found is one of the best ones, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So why did you find that the oil works so well with the C60?
Well, we tend to, and again, I'm sorry to correct you. It really is about keeping audience safe. Right. If you're going to consume it, it's ESS60, right? C60 is for industrial applications. Okay. It took me, when we really decided to make that differentiation, it took me a long time. So,
all right, I'm sure it did.
So I certainly understand. So the reason we recommend the olive oil is twofold. The most important thing is we're a science-based organization, and all of the research is on ESS60 and olive oil. It's not on ESS60 and MCT. It's not on ESS60 and avocado, or heaven forbid sunflower oil, which is just a horrible oil. It is in olive oil. So the science is there. The next is you get the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. So as an example, and we do sell an avocado product, we do sell an MCT product, but you get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and then about 0.3 in MCT oil. And so we recommend the olive oil for those two reasons. And you're right, a high quality olive oil is just amazing. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Gundry. I love what he says about he says the purpose of food is to get more olive oil into your mouth. Like
olive oil has been around. I mean, you look at olive oil. I did the history. I mean, 6,000 years ago, they're growing around the Mediterranean basin. So, and then of course Noah had the olive leaf from the dove. So it's olive trees have been around, one of the oldest plants since the major flood there, supposedly. And so olive oil is every culture, especially the older cultures, all consume it on a daily basis. And we do liver and gallbladder flushes to our patients. And so what are they flushing with? Olive oil. They use Epsom salt and olive oil cleans out that gallbladder and liver really well. And they pass all these stones, and really health improves magically. And so this is what I've been looking at doing, is my own little research is combining those flushes with the ESS60. I'm gonna say it correctly now. And use that in conjunction, and see, maybe even use that instead of just a regular olive oil, use that with our liver gallbladder flush. So this will be my own little project to get back with you guys. So
yeah, I think there would be value in that. And just to kind of go back and answer a question that a lot of people ask, which is, hey, these rats live 90% longer. Why did they live 90% longer? What's the mechanism? And the way I describe it is kind of the current thought in the medical community about aging is that aging is an oxidative and an inflammation process. So as you're being inflamed and as you're experiencing oxidation, when it comes to inflammation, we've got to be really careful. Like the FDA has some strict guidelines. We are able to say that it helps with inflammation, at least as it relates to exercise related inflammation. So we all had a good workout, or even just a day we walked a lot longer and our joints are a little achy. That's inflammation. And we absolutely help with that.
Now, let me ask you a question about that, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, about dosage now. This is always the question, dosage wise. Now, I use a technique called kinesiology, asking the body questions about this. But what do you recommend to people when they're starting out taking this product? Someone's brand new to it. Where is a good place to start? Like, what's a minimum? What's a maximum a person you think can take safely this type of product?
That's an interesting question. I'm aware.
I got my little kits here.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. So each one of those come with little tubes that look like this, right? Little ampules. And what's in each one of these is 5 mils, which is 1 teaspoon. And so that is the recommended serving. I can tell you, here's my kind of daily routine. And I can tell you, in 2018, I started taking this regularly, and I would find that if I got to the afternoon and I felt like I needed a nap, or I felt like I needed another cup of coffee, I could always look back and realize that I hadn't taken the product that morning, right? So I made it part of my coffee routine. Do you do bulletproof coffee, or have you tried it? You mess around with bulletproof coffee?
We're like alchemists in our kitchen here, like Lass and wife and I. We're always mixing our MCT and this, and always making our own little coffees here. But I haven't used the olive oil in coffee. I use MCT oil.
Well, and I don't use olive oil in the coffee. So the bulletproof coffee recipe is a little bit of ghee, right, in your coffee, and then a little bit of MCT. Well, instead of regular MCT, we use our product, of course, and it's really amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful purple color. When you take this black crystal, right, which is the ESS60 powder, and it's a crystalline powder, and you dump it into what is MCT is basically a clear liquid, a clear oil. It actually dissolves and turns this beautiful purple color. So I put that in my coffee.
So what you're saying is take your product that has the MCT oil and use that one instead of the others in your morning coffee.
Yes.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Good idea.
And I'll do about a tablespoon of that, or a teaspoon and a half of that. And then while that's blending, because it's oil and coffee's water based, so it's got to blend up. While that's blending, I'll actually take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil product, and that's kind of my morning routine. I usually have salads for lunch, and when I have salads, I'll pour our avocado product on my salad. Yeah,
you're getting a whole array of the whole products all used in a day. So is there a maximum? Is there a point the person should not take too much of this?
Well, so and you may actually have some ideas, because you obviously have an affinity for olive oil, and you've given it for kind of clearing out the gallbladder, right? My belief is that the toxicity of our olive oil product is the same as the toxicity of olive oil. And I think the toxicity of olive oil, other than massive calories and all that, is related to drowning. Like, I'm not aware of anyone who said, like, if you take 3 cups of olive oil, one, you just, maybe you can't, like, it's just overwhelming. You'll start throwing up just because it's too much food in your stomach. So I'm not aware of any point that you consume it. It may be the case that water is more dangerous than our product because, you know, it's,
so if a child got it and drink the whole bottle, they'd probably be okay. Huh?
Yeah. And in fact, I have heard, now this is I'm breaking my rule here. In terms, it's not really a testimonial, but I have heard that there are people who, from time to time have consumed, 100 mils, the whole bottle, daily. Right. So like there are people consuming massive amounts. Now that's a lot of calories. You would need to make massive dietary adjustments, if you're consuming that much olive oil.
Yeah, but when I'm, my wife's in the Middle East, and so we're over there. People take a cup of olive oil in the morning and just go goop, and they just drink it on down. So they have no problem. So our liver gallbladder flush, you're doing 3/4 of a cup of olive oil. So it can be consumed in lower dosages easy without gut problems.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so, and we've had some people. We tend to recommend take it in the morning, and let me tell you, our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning. They report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Now, I'm not aware of anything else on the market that you take in the morning and improve sleep that night. I'm aware of 2 things you can do, right? You can exercise in the morning. That'll positively impact your sleep that night. You can also get exposure to the sun in the morning and get your circadian rhythm in line. That'll help you sleep at night. But I'm not aware of anything that you take in the morning that positively impacts sleep that night.
Yeah. So, so when you've seen the studies with this, as far as how this product works, is there, as far as looking at hormones, is it affecting like pituitary gland, hypothalamus gland? Are you guys aware in your studies how it affects these areas of the body?
That's a great question. And we don't know. Like, there isn't any research looking at the impact on the hypothalamus. There isn't any research looking at hormones. I think one of the things that we're really kind of formulating very recently is, so even when this molecule was first discovered, it's got amazing symmetry, and that symmetry gives it a lot of strength. And this is the soccer ball molecule. And it can hold, right from the beginning, we understood that it could hold 6 electrons. What that means from a biological perspective is it actually can hold up to 6 reactive oxygen species. And those are the ones that create the oxidation in your body. It's the reason that you take a vitamin C or any other sort of antioxidant, is to manage those reactive oxygen species that come out of the process of making ATP, right? So to kind of fold back to chemistry again, every cell has mitochondria in it. The mitochondria is responsible for converting kind of the energy that's in our bloodstream into energy that the cell can use. That's ATP. And it's got byproducts. One of the byproducts is an ROS, a reactive oxygen species. Again, that's why we take antioxidants. Our current theory is this is able to hold on to. So imagine you've depleted in some region of your body, or in those particular cells, the antioxidants that are available. This stays present, holds on to the reactive oxygen species, prevents them, this is theory, prevents them from doing any damage, because that's where some of this aging damage occurs, is these reactive oxygen species running around the body and oxidizing the body. It holds them so they can't do the damage. And then when your body replenishes other antioxidants or actual antioxidants, those can then interact with that reactive oxygen species. And the ESS60 molecule is left able to do that job again.
So basically what you're saying is like the buzzword, and I know in natural seminars, they talk about methylation processes. And I know that has to do with the mitochondria. You talked about all the trillions of cells having their little charges going on. And so when the body gets toxic, your mitochondria is not doing the ATP type function, with that sodium pump going across the line, creates that electrical bond thing going on, gives a charge to the cell we talked about. Is that process can be enhanced by possibly taking this product, by cleaning up the tissue, right?
Yeah.
Because cellular waste is basically one of the ways that I see people get sick today, all the inflammation and cellular waste we have. So as far as somebody looking to detox their body, cleanse their body, they have some kind of degenerative disease, definitely this type of product would be good to introduce into their system. And like you said, I mean, you just put it there in a way that I'm already got it in my brain, I'm going to do it. MCT in the morning, avocado with my salad, and then the olive oil later on. That's perfect. So people could be taking it 3 times a day easily, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
In terms of safety, yeah.
Chris, tell me some more. When you talk about nanoparticles, I mean, this is a big area today. Tell me more how this product falls in line with all the nanotechnologies. I know I looked at you have C70, C84, different structures there, and I know some of these I looked at even making chemo drugs. You know, the other products you have. So how does this product fall in line with the nanotechnology that everyone hears about today?
Well, you asked a lot there, right? So and I think I can break it down. So when this molecule was discovered, it was understood, it was recognized pretty quickly that, and the whole gamut of molecules is not just one molecule. So you got the soccer ball shaped molecule, right? If we process it for human consumption, we call it ESS60. And then the next one that they were aware of, you mentioned C70 is more of a rugby shaped, right? So it's a little oblong shaped. And then there's C76, C84, C96, like on up, and you get bigger and bigger. And those are called fullerenes.
That's a buzzword right there.
Yeah. And they're very, very expensive. Already this molecule ESS60 is expensive in its own right. And those are orders of magnitude more expensive. So that's kind of the fullerene side of things. When you want to talk about nano, you mentioned some applications for cancers. It's very understood, and this is related to that kind of new symbol in chemistry, the at symbol. It was understood or thought that you could put radioactive atoms inside of the buckyball, again, not bonded with the exterior of it, but physically trapped on it. A lot of the chemistry that we know from biology works on the exterior of this cage. And so we could actually have, add a protein that would then attach to a cancer cell. And so now you've delivered a radioactive payload to a particular cancer cell. So you're going to do a lot less damage throughout the body, and do some really good recovery there.
Kind of like B17.
I also want to talk about, go ahead.
Remember B17, it'd bring its payload in there, and the cyanide inside the apricot seed. I don't know if you know that about that. And that was a big deal. The apricot seed, you eat them and it deliver, they called it B17, and deliver cyanide inside the cell directly to the cancer cell and kill it. And so immediately years ago it was banned because they said it was dangerous. And then I watched a scientist says, I'm going to commit suicide on TV show. He took a handful of apricots and ate them because they only release when they come in contact, I guess, the certain enzymes on a cancer cell, they know to release it on the cancer cell itself. And that's B17, it was called for years. So same kind of idea, take the payload, deliver it to the cancer cell, right?
Only to the cancer cell, yeah.
Right.
And I think it's worth, in the realm of cancer, and we're going to be really careful here, right? In that original study, they gave the type of rat they used was a Wistar rat. A typical Wistar rat will live out to 32 months and will have a known amount of tumors in it. So the longer the rat lives, the more tumor mass they have in the body. Even though the MyVital C rats lived out to 62 months, none of them had any tumors in them. And then, so I'll tell this story to some people and like, oh, cure for cancer. And the answer to that is no, like absolutely no. There's a big difference between managing a cancer that has metastasized and being a cancer preventative, right? We know things like a good diet, so good nutrition, good sleep, exercise are good cancer preventatives. And this isn't even implicated there. What really is the implication, not the statement. The implication is that it has the potential to be a good tumor preventer, right? Whether it's a benign or malignant tumor, it has the ability to be a good tumor preventer. So that piece of the study is also pretty impressive, but you can't jump to conclusions with that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to figure out in the future, because as far as extending life, I know, your hormones have everything to do with it, from your adrenal glands, which are your hormones that will keep you young, to the pituitary, like I said, hypothalamus, because I was involved in some research in California years ago. We're seeing how to stimulate the pituitary hypothalamus to keep it running, functioning like it did. And toxins are the things that basically made it not work the way it does. So I could see where your product, by removing all that cellular debris being in that process, could help the pituitary gland and such work and function better. So let's move on to the other subject here. When you talk about the fullerenes, actually, I saw for the first time a patient came in the other day and says, "Look, I have a fullerene product. I've never seen one on the market." And I'm sure it was probably one of your products that they made into theirs, but it said contains fullerenes, and it had the buzzword on it. And you know what the buzzword I'm going to talk about is the graphene oxide. So the buzzword graphene oxide, fullerene. So help the public understand when they hear the graphene oxide from your point of view, Chris,
Yeah.
what that is and what they can possibly do about that, implications for the body.
Well, so first off, a lot of people get confused and think that maybe this ESS60 molecule and graphene are close enough related that they'll have similar impacts in the body. And it's important to understand that they, in terms of their, so yes, graphene is a carbon molecule. Yes, ESS60 is a carbon molecule, but that's actually where the difference, the similarities end. If you imagine, so what graphene is it's from graphite that we use in our lead pencils, right? Leaves this, what it does leave actually is graphene sheets on your piece of paper, like lots of them, but it's leaving graphite like that. Imagine a ream of paper, right? And that's graphite. And then if you take one piece of paper, that's graphene. So it's an individual layer of a carbon lattice. Now compare that to a ball. They're not really compared. It's kind of taking a sheet of paper and saying, oh, look, because this sheet of paper is made as the same thing as this ball, they must be similar. No, that physical structure has a dramatic impact on how those interact with the body. So I think the first and most important thing is these are wholly unrelated molecules, other than the fact that they're carbon. Like in carbon, we know that activated carbon is actually good for absorbing toxins in our body. We know that very well. So there are beneficial pieces. And I think that's the first thing to get, and most important thing to get out of the way.
Okay. But the graphene oxide, that was always a question for me for a long time, is how do we get it out of the body? In your opinion, is it possibly to remove it from the body that's in someone's body?
Well, so one, I haven't really kind of dug into graphene oxide and its impact on the body. I did like kind of a quick search. It is apparently challenging to get out of the body and can cause some problems. I'm also looking here on a quick search. It talks about cell apoptosis, which I think we understand now is a good thing, right? If you've got some zombie cells or some senescent cells, that would be something that you would actually like to happen. So in general, I don't have an understanding of graphene oxides and its impact in the body. Most of the time, the question I get is, are these the same, right? Because they're carbon and they're small, or nano specifically. And the answer is they're not the same.
Yeah, that for sure, you've made that clear. So you, as far as the research, they're definitely not the same things. But
yeah,
but then again, the question is, can it be removed? And so when I saw this product the other day, the first thing I thought of your products. It looked like someone else has got one they made and put their name on it, but they put those buzzwords, help remove the nano graphene oxide, right? So I don't know if you can really make that claim, but that's what this
I would like to see the research.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's where I always land. I would like, because people make claims. In fact, one of the bigger C60 guys on the market, at one point I saw a video he did and he was like, oh yeah, it extends the telomeres on your DNA. And so I hit him up on Facebook, like a private chat. And I'm like, hey, this is exciting, Mr. Scientist. He claims to be a scientist. This is really exciting. Like, where's the research? And his response was, oh, everybody knows that. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that everybody knows that. Where's the research? No, it's good. And then I was like, no, but really, where's the research? Oh, there is none. Right. So this is somebody who claims to be a scientist out there saying that very specific things are happening for which there is no research. Like there's just no research on that. And you've got to be careful in that arena. So
as far as what you're doing and your staff, you guys with your company, where's the future of this going? Are you guys going to do your own research to find out what this is really doing to the body and how it's benefiting even more details?
Yeah, so this is pretty exciting. The lead professor on the original paper, His name is Dr. Fathi Musa out of the University of Paris. We've recently come to an agreement with him, and we're co-writing a paper together on the toxicity of the ESS60 molecule. So basically, it's funny because like about a month ago, he published just like 5 short paragraphs. He said, look, I did this study back in 2012, and nobody's come out with like some sanctioned studies on the toxicity, like those standard studies that you would do if you're trying to prove that it's non-toxic, which we know the research is pretty clear. But we've done those studies, and we just kind of signed the deal to co-author a paper with him to publish those. So that's one thing that's happening. We have about 4 steps to jump through before we can recreate that original rat study. The way the scientific process works is you have a hypothesis. Ironically, in this case, the hypothesis was that this ESS60 molecule was dangerous and potentially toxic. Then you have a result, and the result was that the rats lived 90% longer than the control group. And then what usually happens next, or what needs to happen next in the scientific process, is another lab needs to recreate. It has to be another lab, right? Because of conflicts of interest. And another lab needs to recreate that original study. So we're jumping through the hoops that we need to. That, by the way, that study's expensive. It turned out to be a 5.5-year study. It was supposed to only be a 2.5-year study because a typical Wistar rat dies at 32 months. And actually what you understand for sure is that if the group of rats that you thought were given a toxic material are all alive, and the control rats that were given water are all dead, you can 100% say it's not toxic, right? Like that's that's a non-toxic result. They outlived the control group. And I kudos to Musa. They continued to do the animal husbandry for another 30 months while these rats, to keep them alive, like, because they were still living, they weren't dying, they actually had this massive extension of life. And so that's the study that we're going to do. It's expensive. We're putting away some money in the bank so that when that big bill, because you have to pay for those up front for ethical reasons, you can't pay on a monthly basis. You've got to fund the whole thing, because they don't want you running out of funding halfway through and then you have to euthanize all the animals. So yeah, we're working on that.
Now, when you do that type of research, are you looking at how the hormones are being affected, things like that as well?
Well, we certainly will look into what we can afford to look into, given that these are really, given that these are expensive, and it's a 5+ year study. We're going to make some adjustments. We think it'll even be longer than a 5-year study. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort. They looked at things like liver health. They actually, one piece of that study, they injected some carbon tetrachloride, which is a known oxidative stress inducer. The rats that were given the MyVital-C formula, again, their livers were showing repair, where the rats given water, showed the typical damage of a carbon tetrachloride injection. So we'll be looking at whatever we can. What I'd like to be looking at is this mitochondria, the benefits that could be happening in the mitochondria, how this antioxidant is working, how it's working as an antioxidant, because I don't think it works as a traditional antioxidant. Those are the kinds of things that we're trying to identify the right organization to do those studies, even separate from that longer term rat study.
So you can look, since these rats have all these different specific diseases, I'm sure you're going to see that cellular debris, right? And so by using the product, you'd see it clear. Yeah, that'd be a good way to look at the mitochondria, right? So that would be saying it's really cleaning up the lymphatic system. That'd be wonderful. I mean, really today, inflammation and pathogens, the two things why people are so sick. And so all that debris is, a lot of times, is just the pathogens have left their cellular waste in there as well, not just the trillions of cells. And so if you're cleaning up that, their lymphatic system, that's a magic bullet right there in itself.
Yeah. No, and if you look at the breadth of positive testimonials, again, not FDA approved, it's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, prevent any disease, but you look at every kind of testimonial that comes in, they've really run across the whole system of human biology, right? So and one of our thoughts is, I mean, the easiest one is our customers report better sleep. If you get better sleep, you are better mentally, physically, and emotionally, right?
So what's the most dramatic thing you've heard from someone talking to you, Chris? Is somebody said, "Hey, this really changed my life." What's the most wonderful thing someone has told you?
Okay, so I've got one video testimonial, and the lady almost, well, really has moved to tears twice in the testimonial video. And she talks, again, this is a testimonial. This is not me saying this product does anything, because we're actually going to be talking about a very severe sleep problem. She had a severe sleep problem, had visited physicians. In the video, she talks about 4 years and had not solved it. And sleep is just like, when you're not getting sleep, your body just starts to shut down. Like, that's what happens. So she said she started taking the product. She started sleeping well. And the first thing that she said that moved her to tears was that her partner is getting to know her again, the real her, because if you're not getting sleep, you're not the real you anymore. And then towards the end, she just, was thanking the company for getting the product to her, and also moved to tears again. So, I mean, that's definitely moving. We really just get it across the gamut. I've got, there's a guy who was talking about, and this is a testimonial on Google, talking about, he used to take 6 pain medications and he doesn't take them anymore. Excellent. Now, I'm not making a claim. Like, I just want to be very clear. We're not selling this as a pain reliever. You won't see that on any of our packaging, because there's research that needs to be done to confirm that. And again, if you're just getting better sleep, that can help you mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so it could be just that simple. Okay, great. Well, guys, we're going to wrap up the show here. And today, not C60, ESS60. Am I saying it correctly? ESS. Yes. This is the product we're interviewing with Chris today, right here in Houston, Texas, the SEO company. And this is the original formula made originally right here in Houston with all the nanotechnologies. And we could talk for probably a few more hours about all the stuff this company's doing, guys. So if you go to their website, you can see all the other products, the other fullerene products that you guys have. And of course, I didn't get to talk about that geodome that the guy, Buckminster, how do you say it? Yeah, Buckminster Fuller, yeah. I have a lot of questions about that, but we can save that for later on. It seems like he created that special shape, right? So Chris, thank you so much for the public. There's many people that need to hear what you had to say today. And hopefully you guys understand how clear and simple this is. And I want to rephrase, morning you do your MCT, avocado one on your salads, and then the olive oil later in the day. And for sleep, and as far as actually, I have the olive oil while my coffee is blending, so I do have that in the morning also. Okay, so you do yours in the morning like that. All right, and yeah. I can say, guys, one thing that I noticed personally from it, and really I've been in this business a long time, so not a lot of things affect me dramatically, but I noticed sleep, Chris. As far as one thing, when I'm taking this in the morning right now, is I notice I have been sleeping better, and so I can honestly say that's a change. So, yeah. Guys. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Once again, Chris Burres, thank you so much, Chris, and hopefully in the future we'll have him back on the show. And I'm Dr. Patrick Price, and this is the Body Detective Show. Take care, everyone.